and run ideas by them. It's actually, in many ways, an idea of how to really run a democratic government. Because if we do not fix the corruption of our information ecosystem, we are at an existential moment for democracy. And the democracies who are doing this, number one, make themselves more vulnerable to attacks. Lies spread 6 times faster than facts. That alone has turned the world upside down, right? Because if lies spread faster, the incentive structure rewards the liar. If you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these 3, we have no shared reality. You cannot have democracy, let alone solve existential problems like climate change. The time to act is now. The Open Government Partnership has a unique possibility because of the networks it has already put in place. This is a network that has trust. Civil society can't use tools of the past to deal with the new attacks of the present. We have to redefine what civic engagement looks like in the age of exponential lies, and on generative AI in the age of exponential lies. We need to step up, stop being users and become citizens, because the window to act to preserve democracy is closing. Open Government Partnership has networks of trust, has workflows that have worked. This is a time to use it to protect democracy.
Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency, how AI and generative AI is being trained, how is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency accountability without OGP. Open government is a principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy. Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency, how AI and generative AI is being trained, how is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency accountability without OGP. Open government is a principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy.
What will it take to solve the biggest challenges of our time? What will it take to include everyone's voice in how decisions are made? We need an idea that's bold and ambitious, with people at its heart. That idea is open government. An open government is transparent, inclusive, participatory, and accountable. So governments don't just serve themselves, they work with citizens both in and out of government to develop smarter policies and improved services that make things better for everyone. And we all get to see how decisions are made, ask questions, and hold power to account. People like you are using the Open Government Partnership to create and implement thousands of initiatives that are transforming societies around the world. Open budgets and contracts are ensuring that money isn't lost to corruption. Having a say in public services has let citizens shape the communities they live in. Equal access to the justice system and public information is open to everyone, especially the most vulnerable. The potential of technology is harnessed while safeguarding against digital threats. And our fundamental freedoms are strengthened, letting us voice our needs and concerns safely. OGP provides a platform for reformers to co-create solutions, monitor progress, and share knowledge with peers across the globe. But for this to work, we need more reformers in government to open new doors, allies outside government to help find ambitious solutions, and partners around the world to support these efforts. We need you. Join us in building a better, more open world. What will it take to solve the biggest challenges of our time? What will it take to include everyone's voice in how decisions are made? We need an idea that's bold and ambitious, with people at its heart. That idea is open government. An open government is transparent, inclusive, participatory, and accountable. So governments don't just serve themselves, they work with citizens both in and out of government to develop smarter policies and improved services that make things better for everyone. And we all get to see how decisions are made, ask questions, and hold power to account. People like you are using the Open Government Partnership to create and implement thousands of initiatives that are transforming societies around the world. Open budgets and contracts are ensuring that money isn't lost to corruption. Having a say in public services has let citizens shape the communities they live in. Equal access to the justice system and public information is open to everyone, especially the most vulnerable. The potential of technology is harnessed while safeguarding against digital threats. And our fundamental freedoms are strengthened, letting us voice our needs and concerns safely. OGP provides a platform for reformers to co-create solutions, monitor progress, and share knowledge with peers across the globe. But for this to work, we need more reformers in government to open new doors, allies outside government to help find ambitious solutions, and partners around the world to support these efforts. We need you. Join us in building a better, more open world.
Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency, how AI and generative AI is being trained, how is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency accountability without OGP. Open government is the principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy. Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency, how AI and generative AI is being trained, how is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency accountability without OGP. Open government is the principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy.
Open government partnership was really something that was created at a time when technology enabled crowdsourcing at scale, right? Meaning you can actually engage with your citizens and help them help you be able to make policy decisions and run ideas by them. It's actually, in many ways, an idea of how to really run a democratic government. Because if we do not fix the corruption of our information ecosystem, we are at an existential moment for democracy. And the democracies who are doing this, number one, make themselves more vulnerable to attacks. Lies spread 6 times faster than facts. That alone has turned the world upside down, right? Because if lies spread faster, the incentive structure rewards the liar. If you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these 3, we have no shared reality. You cannot have democracy, let alone solve existential problems like climate change. The time to act is now. The Open Government Partnership has a unique possibility because of the networks it has already put in place. This is a network that has trust. Civil society can't use tools of the past to deal with the new attacks of the present. We have to redefine what civic engagement looks like in the age of exponential lies, and on generative AI in the age of exponential lies. We need to step up, stop being users and become citizens, because the window to act to preserve democracy is closing. Open Government Partnership has networks of trust, has workflows that have worked. This is a time to use it to protect democracy.
Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency? How AI and generative AI is being trained? How is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency accountability without OGP. Open government is a principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy. Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency, how AI and generative AI is being trained, how is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency accountability without OGP. Open government is a principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy.
Open government partnership was really something that was created at a time when technology enabled crowdsourcing at scale, right? Meaning you can actually engage with your citizens and help them help you be able to make policy decisions and run ideas by them. It's actually, in many ways, an idea of how to really run a democratic government. Because if we do not fix the corruption of our information ecosystem, we are at an existential moment for democracy. And the democracies who are doing this, number one, make themselves more vulnerable to attacks. Lies spread 6 times faster than facts. That alone has turned the world upside down, right? Because if lies spread faster, the incentive structure rewards the liar. If you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these three, we have no shared reality. You cannot have democracy, let alone solve existential problems like climate change. The time to act is now. The Open Government Partnership has a unique possibility because of the networks it has already put in place. This is a network that has trust. Civil society can't use tools of the past to deal with the new attacks of the present. We have to redefine what civic engagement looks like in the age of exponential lies, and on generative AI in the age of exponential lies. We need to step up, stop being users and become citizens, because the window to act to preserve democracy is closing. Open Government Partnership has networks of trust, has workflows that have worked. This is a time to use it to protect democracy.
Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency, how AI and generative AI is being trained, how is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency accountability without OGP. Open government is the principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy. Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency? How AI and generative AI is being trained? How is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency accountability without OGP. Open government is the principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy. Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency? How AI and generative AI is being trained? How is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency accountability without OGP. Open government is the principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy. Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. Collection of revenue, having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency? How AI and generative AI is being trained? How is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency, accountability without OGP. Open government is the principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy. Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency, how AI and generative AI is being trained, how is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency, accountability without OGP. Open government is a principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy.
Open government partnership was really something that was created at a time when technology enabled crowdsourcing at scale, right? Meaning you can actually engage with your citizens and help them help you be able to make policy decisions and run ideas by them. It's actually, in many ways, an idea of how to really run a democratic government. Because if we do not fix the corruption of our information ecosystem, we are at an existential moment for democracy. And the democracies who are doing this, number one, make themselves more vulnerable to attacks. Lies spread 6 times faster than facts. That alone has turned the world upside down, right? Because if lies spread faster, the incentive structure rewards the liar. If you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these three, we have no shared reality. You cannot have democracy, let alone solve existential problems like climate change. The time to act is now. The Open Government Partnership has a unique possibility because of the networks it has already put in place. This is a network that has trust. Civil society can't use tools of the past to deal with the new attacks of the present. We have to redefine what civic engagement looks like. in the age of exponential lies, and on generative AI in the age of exponential lies. We need to step up, stop being users, and become citizens, because the window to act to preserve democracy is closing. Open government partnership has networks of trust, has workflows that have worked. This is a time to use it to protect democracy. Open government partnership was really something that was created at a time when technology enabled crowdsourcing at scale, right? Meaning you can actually engage with your citizens and help them help you be able to make policy decisions and run ideas by them. It's actually, in many ways, an idea of how to really run a democratic government. Because if we do not fix the corruption of our information ecosystem, we are at an existential moment for democracy. And the democracies who are doing this, number one, make themselves more vulnerable to attacks. Lies spread 6 times faster than facts. That alone has turned the world upside down, right? Because if lies spread faster, the incentive structure rewards the liar. If you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these three, we have no shared reality. You cannot have democracy, let alone solve existential problems like climate change. The time to act is now. The Open Government Partnership has a unique possibility because of the networks it has already put in place. This is a network that has trust. Civil society can't use tools of the past to deal with the new attacks of the present. We have to redefine what civic engagement looks like in the age of exponential lies, and on generative AI in the age of exponential lies. We need to step up, stop being users, and become citizens, because the window to act to preserve democracy is closing. Open government partnership has networks of trust, has workflows that have worked. This is a time to use it to protect democracy.
Every democracy can benefit from digital technologies because the world is rapidly changing. It's affecting how we live, learn, work, communicate. Our communities that were previously in the margins and whose voices were never heard can now be amplified in almost near real time. There's a lot of conversations on how technology can be used for governance, can be used for public service delivery, can be used for tax collection or revenue. Having a conversation between private sector, civil society, parliament, and citizens on how emerging technologies can, yes, be built safely, can be built secure. We, of course, are building up a data protection commission, which is quite robust, but that's not enough. The idea is to figure out how you have a whole of society approach. Open government, as you perhaps know, was very much built around transparency, accountability, and leveraging technology for public service delivery. Where we are seeing a bigger gap is how we can govern those technologies, how those technologies make those decisions. How can we make those decisions more transparent? How can we bring in these new notions of things like algorithmic transparency, how AI and generative AI is being trained, how is that data being used? These nuances around what we are seeing as emerging risks and threats to democracy around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and with the AI, deepfakes. And so that's why I think OGP needs to play, because there's really not many people working in there. For us, it's quite obvious that you cannot necessarily have technology that sort of governs or moves transparency, accountability without OGP. Open government is a principle that guides how technology is leveraged for democracy.
Open government partnership was really something that was created at a time when technology enabled crowdsourcing at scale, right? Meaning you can actually engage with your citizens and help them help you be able to make policy decisions and run ideas by them. It's actually, in many ways, an idea of how to really run a democratic government. Because if we do not fix the corruption of our information ecosystem, we are at an existential moment for democracy. And the democracies who are doing this, number one, make themselves more vulnerable to attacks. Lies spread 6 times faster than facts. That alone has turned the world upside down, right? Because if lies spread faster, the incentive structure rewards the liar. If you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these 3, we have no shared reality. You cannot have democracy, let alone solve existential problems like climate change. The time to act is now. The Open Government Partnership has a unique possibility because of the networks it has already put in place. This is a network that has trust. Civil society can't use tools of the past to deal with the new attacks of the present. We have to redefine what civic engagement looks like in the age of exponential lies, and on generative AI in the age of exponential lies. We need to step up, stop being users and become citizens, because the window to act to preserve democracy is closing. Open government partnership has networks of trust, has workflows that have worked
We live in an era of diminished trust, that world over, trust in government is at an all-time low. Trust in institutions, including media and civil society and private sector, is at an all-time low. The only trusted sectors are teachers and scientists.
It's a global imperative to restore public trust in governance. It's a challenge everyone is facing, no matter where you are in the world. And this is mainly because all of our structures and all of our structures of governance globally are designed.
We live in an era of diminished trust, that world over, trust in government is at an all-time low. Trust in institutions, including media and civil society and private sector, is at an all-time low. The only trusted sectors are teachers and scientists.
It's a global imperative to restore public trust in governance. It's a challenge everyone is facing, no matter where you are in the world. And this is mainly because all of our structures and all of our structures of governance globally are designed under the systems of the 19th century. You call people for a town hall meeting and you use a newspaper, targeting a majority of population that is young in the 21st century. And so there is a disconnect and there's a huge trust deficit because people want results immediately, they want information immediately, they need radical transparency.
I think one of the biggest challenges have to do with openness, and sometimes it's not about a reluctance to be open, it's about an inability to actually achieve the level of openness that the people are looking for.
Because people do know what it is that they want as solutions. We're not blind to the fact that digitization is a reality, but ask us what we would like to see. That's the first point of departure.
Digital tools are being used and embraced actively to ensure that we hold our leaders accountable and that the youth are engaged in terms of decision making and policies that will be shaping their futures.
So trust is a bedrock of collective action. To enable collective action, all players must have trust in the process. And I think as a beginning, the challenge of information, especially on climate, is that the information is inaccessible. And so to provide that trust, you have to first break down the information into bits that can be accessible for majority of communities.
It's time right now to take a step back, rethink all what we've learned from our different actions, and now look at the most pressing needs we have. For example, with digital technologies, with the internet, with artificial intelligence, there are new threats and challenges that we need to incorporate and use the open government partnership structure that has worked over the years to really address some of these challenges unique to our countries and our regions.
OGP provides a mechanism for co-creation. You identify the issues that are a priority to your government, to your citizens, to your country. You come together around a table and co-create, solutions.
For Radisson Blu Hotel Nairobi Upper Hill, we believe in the power of open governance. We also believe in transparency. So for us, we're really excited to be supporting and to be a partner of OGP this year, because it means that whatever theme they have for this year, we are sharing in their thoughts, we are sharing in whatever purpose that they have in shaping our collective future.
Welcome.
Welcome.
We would like to welcome you.
Karibu Nairobi.
To welcome you to Nairobi.
Karibu to Nairobi, Kenya.
Karibuni Nairobi, Kenya.
And welcome to the 2025
The African Middle East Open Government Partnership Regional Meeting that is focused on rebuilding trust through open government. This meeting is timely. The world is experiencing shifts and geopolitical tensions, and I truly believe that this region can provide that answer and teach everybody else on how to collaborate through a whole of society approach. And this is where you need to be.
Karibu Nairobi and enjoy yourselves. Welcome.
What will it take to solve the biggest challenges of our time? What will it take to include everyone's voice in how decisions are made? We need an idea that's bold and ambitious, with people at its heart. That idea is open government. An open government is transparent, inclusive, participatory, and accountable. So governments don't just serve themselves, they work with citizens both in and out of government to develop smarter policies and improved services that make things better for everyone. And we all get to see how decisions are made, ask questions, and hold power to account. People like you are using the Open Government Partnership to create and implement thousands of initiatives that are transforming societies around the world. Open budgets and contracts are ensuring that money isn't lost to corruption. Having a say in public services has let citizens shape the communities they live in. Equal access to the justice system and public information is open to everyone, especially the most vulnerable. The potential of technology is harnessed while safeguarding against digital threats. And our fundamental freedoms are strengthened, letting us voice our needs and concerns safely. OGP provides a platform for reformers to co-create solutions, monitor progress, and share knowledge with peers across the globe. But for this to work, we need more reformers in government to open new doors, allies outside government to help find ambitious solutions, and partners around the world to support these efforts. We need you. Join us in building a better, more open world.
Rejuvenate governance,
accountability, and citizen empowerment. Let me begin by reflecting on our journey and my journey in Nairobi.
When I
campaigned in government, having come from being a senator for the city, the people of Nairobi spoke very clearly. They demanded order, dignity, hope, and opportunity. They were tired of a government that did not listen, that did not include their views, and they wanted a seat at the table. Because development is a team effort, not an exhibition. Nairobi's story, for those who might be new to the city, is a story of resilience and ambition. It's a defiant city. But it's a city where the soul of African resilience meets bold ideas. Our city stands as a symbol of what open government can achieve. It is not idealism, it is the foundation of democracy. That is why at the beginning of my term in office, we re-engaged with the Open Government Partnership in this local program. And of course, through a multi-stakeholder approach that was quite rigorous, we crafted an action plan to embed openness in our governance DNA, just as Kenya's constitution envisions in Article 174, which reminds us that devolution, one of the greatest gifts of our constitution in Kenya, exists to promote democratic power, recognize diversity, and empower citizens in decision making. One of our biggest hallmarks of our constitution is our chapter, our Article 10 that talks about inclusivity and public participation. And many governments, and I'm glad to acknowledge the presence of a few deputy governors from Nandi and Marakwet, we all strive to find our way, and though many may falter at times, it is the initiative and the intention to actually fulfill that sacrosanct requirement of our constitution, of which I am very proud. And I know through open government partnership, many of our subnational governments should be able to achieve that. And I'm glad today we have Senators, Karen Nyamu and Senator Chesang from the ICT committee. We also depend on you to help us make that a reality. Today, my county, Nairobi, is proud to be part of the OGP law, a network of more than 150 local governments or subnational governments representing 2 billion people. That 6 of these local governments are from Africa and Middle East. This meeting, themed Rebuilding Trust through Open Government, could not be timelier. Trust is a currency of governance. And in an era of rapid urbanization, cities like ours across this continent in the Middle East must deliver services efficiently, but at the same time fostering citizen trust. In the video I was saying that it's a prerogative of all of us globally. It's not a challenge that is unique to anybody. And the analogy I was giving is we are all running systems of governance designed in the 19th century, designed to operate on the information technology of the 15th century, which is the printing press, but to deal with a growing population, and especially in this region, a very young population of the 21st century that is impatient and has an urgency and needs radical transparency and needs to co-create. There is definitely apathy and there's definitely a disconnect if we rely on doing things the same way we've always done things. And I hope that through the OGP, we can also begin to reimagine democracy and reimagine the systems of governance and unlearn that which has kept us so rigid that most governments on our continent, most governments all over, are facing a serious problem of trust with their people. Local governments are where the rubber meets the road. We provide healthcare, education, water, and sanitation, often with limited resources. Yet some of the most innovative reforms
at this level, mainly listening to our people and understanding their needs. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest strengths of OGP Local is opportunity to learn from each other's innovations. Across Africa and the Middle East, local governments have pioneered impactful initiatives that are improving governance and service delivery. And I'm glad our CEO has listed a few. In Plateau State, Nigeria, for instance, the state has become a trailblazer in transparency within the extractive sector. It was the first state in Nigeria to establish a framework ensuring that local communities benefit from mining revenues and agreements. In Morocco, and similar to the example given of Tangier Tetuan, Aloisima has distinguished itself with an innovative approach to planning and citizen oversight. The region developed a monitoring, evaluation, and learning digital platform to track its regional development plan. We can learn from each other. We do not need to reinvent the wheel. In Nairobi County, my administration has remained keen in ensuring public participation and a mechanism to engage the people of Nairobi. We have the inclusivity and public participation sector. When we got into office, we created a sector specifically for that with a minister in charge of public participation and inclusivity. It promotes civic participation, accountability, and it's responsive to the people. For us, public participation has moved from just being a physical meeting to engaging electronically through various platforms. And of course, we can continue improving that. We can do much better. In addition, we have further devolved our customer service centers to some sub-counties to be easily reachable to the people. The first principle that I insisted with my staff is obsession with the customer and seeing the citizens as that. In Nairobi, we continue to turn these principles to action. And another example is our school feeding program, Dish in a County. Through the Tap to Eat wristbands, like the yellow one I'm wearing, we serve 310,000 meals daily to school-going children, digitizing every single step to ensure transparency. The results in the last 1.5 years have been a 34% increase in school attendance, jobs for cooks and farmers across the country, and a model of accountability that rebuilds trust with our people. But our work does not stop there. We've prioritized open contracting because our people deserve to see how their hard-earned taxes are spent from tender to delivery. We're publishing budgets, air quality data, urban plans, while innovating 247 citizen engagement tools. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges ahead are immense. Urbanization strains our infrastructure, and the last mile of service delivery, reaching the poorest, remains a test. Yet open government is our tool to bridge gaps. When citizens see the trash collected, see taps flowing with water, roads done, and hospitals filled with drugs, then the trust grows. I know as leaders, and many leaders are here from both levels of government, we face many challenges to deliver for our people. But this is what we signed for, and it's our responsibility to ensure we work to deliver this promise. We, however, cannot deliver alone. We need to work in partnership with all stakeholders to deliver. In the 1950s, a stark statistic is that 22% of the world's population was in Europe, just in the 50s. By 2050, 25%, meaning 1 out of every 4 human beings will be on this continent that has that median age of 19. And for those of you in cities, 65% of that population will be in our cities. The challenge is there. The tools are available. We need each other to innovate. So tonight, I call for deeper collaboration. Let us share solutions. Let us replicate successes. And let us lift each other's capacities. OGP is our platform. Let us use it to transform lives. Let us use it to transform the lives of our people and of our region. To our guests, your commitment inspires. Together, we can make every city and every country in our continent and in the region and in Middle East become a beacon of order, dignity, hope, and opportunity. Asanteni sana, karibuni Nairobi. Now for those, how many of you are here for the first time? Oh, we have a first timer. There are gifts for first time guests. If you're here for the first time, now I can see more hands going up. I'd just like to give you 2 warnings. The first one is, of course, a welcome, because we are very proud of the fact that Kenya is everyone's home. So welcome home. This is where the earliest fossils of mankind have been found. And so this is your home, karibuni nyumbani. And so if you feel like your blood is flowing smoother and you feel like staying around, please stay. Secondly, it's a warning that I've been asked to share with you from His Excellency the President. We are very close to our national park. And so if you encounter any animal at night, please just say hi. Ngumi ni mbwekse. They are not normally, if you don't disturb them, you'll be okay. But please make a point, and I know the Prime Cabinet Secretary invited you, please make a point to visit our national park. We are proud to be the only capital in the world with a natural national park, untouched, unspoiled habitat with animals. Make a point, and we can work out a discount for those who are going from OGP. Thank you very much, and enjoy Nairobi. May God bless you.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Governor. I raised my hand. It's my first time in Nairobi. You have to prove that I've been here before. So, thank you so much for welcoming us in Nairobi. And the plan was deliberate that you will talk about Dish in a County, and they started serving us Dishy. So the governor, what you're eating is called Dish. So governor has fed us. Thank you very much, Bwana Governor. Let me call Stephanie Mushai, OGP Steering Committee member from civil society.
Thank you very much. I was promised a gentleman to bring me up on the stage. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I stand on established protocol by Ambassador and Governor and recognize the representatives of the Kenyan governments. Welcome. I join my fellow Kenyans in welcoming you to our beautiful country and hope you take time out of the hotel to explore the city, but also to enjoy Kenyan hospitality. And so I hope you enjoy your time here. I take this opportunity very seriously, me and my colleagues, and the reason that we do that is because we have decision makers in the room. We have people who have the authority, the mandate, the influence to do something about what it is that we are proposing. And so I hope that you receive my remarks with the understanding that we are very pleased to have you in the room to hear these proposals. Now, the theme of this gathering is rebuilding trust through open government approaches, as we've heard. But what precisely is the problem? What is the trust deficit that we're talking about? We don't want to assume that we're all on the same page. So let me highlight some of the challenges that people are speaking about in this region, and this is a regional meeting, that they are struggling with. What is it that citizens are struggling with, especially in the light of noting that in the region, we've seen some promising growth in various areas. We've seen developmental growth, we've seen growth in environmental and digital advancements, we have seen really improved regional integration with things like the Africa Free Trade Agreement and so forth. So why is it that there's a trust deficit, even in light of these developments in Africa and the Middle East regions? The challenges that citizens are grappling with in the various countries are civil unrest, wars, strained standards of living, growing inequalities, debt crises, social and economic injustices, and an overall just deficit of trust because of people's lived realities every day. What is it that they're saying they're concerned about? They don't trust the day-to-day activities of public institutions. They're not sure whether those are working out for their good or whether it's a lot of bureaucracy that's not really resulting in meeting their needs. They've also said they're not sure that national and local governments are making effective, enabling, and transformative policy decisions for all groups of society. So many feel they're not part of the agenda of the policy making and that they're left out. They are concerned that parliamentary representation is not taking the issues that they care about forward, and they're really concerned about corporate and business and political influences on the representative processes. If we look at the information ecosystem, they are wondering whether governments will regulate new technologies with human rights and people-centered approaches. With the rise of mis- and disinformation, they wonder whether the information that's distributed about matters of public interest is genuine or if it is a disingenuous PR exercise. They've also said that a lot of the information they receive as citizens on what's happening and the work that's being done in country is really complex. They can't understand the budget information, they can't understand the statistics, they don't know how to chew that up and make it matter to them. Artificial intelligence is also playing a big role in exacerbating deficits of trusts as to what is genuine and what is fake information. And this has been said not only to be a problem for citizens, but also for governments as well, with the genuine and fake information. So as we thought about the trust deficits, we thought about the progress in the region, we thought about what it is that citizens are concerned about, we came up with a few proposals for the consideration of all the decision makers in the room, the policy makers and the political leadership as to what it is you can consider towards rebuilding trust with citizens. They are certainly not exhaustive in terms of required reforms, but they are certainly foundational and critical aspects to be addressed. Governments communicate a lot of information. Citizens are saying that we would like to see that this information is backed by research, that it's backed, that it's verifiable, that when we receive it, we're able to verify it. They want to see that it's meeting their needs. So many times they hear about initiatives, but they don't know how linked it is to society's needs in terms of the prioritization. And so communicating that alongside with the information they have said will be important. They have also said, can the governments let us know that the initiatives that they're taking are contributing to a resilient, inclusive society, that we're going to be able to withstand shocks like we saw in 2020 and other types of economic shocks. They want to know that I'm included in what is being done. And so can this do that? And then lastly, in terms of what can accompany the information that we communicate is, can it show the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that integrity is being upheld in all the implementation? How are you preventing undue influence? How are you preventing conflicts of interest? And they said that this would help us trust governments more if we understood this lens of what it is that they communicate. The second is, they said, we have in many countries opportunity to participate, and we have public participation laws, we have public participation forums, portals, and so on. But they're not sure what happens to their information once they provide it to the policymakers. And those, they said, can they find a way to give us feedback on what happened to all the information that was provided? How was it processed? What was the basis? They have an understanding that you cannot take 100% of what is given in public participation all the time, but they would like to see what we call a reasoned response as to why this was left out and why this was taken on board. They said that will help them feel that governments are not doing a cosmetic exercise of bringing us on the table, but they will see that there was consideration of the proposals and a basis for decision of what was taken and what was left out. Where there are budget constraints on public participation, civil society are always ready to partner and support governments. Public participation is a big part of civil society work and programming, and oftentimes there are budgets to do that. And within the OGP structure of co-creation and co-implementation, civil society are willing to partner with regards to the forums that they have some funding for, to be able to support you to meet your statutory obligations for public participation. There's also the opportunity in the funding constraints to use technology to be able to reach. And this is both high tech and low tech for those in rural areas that don't have access, for example, to internet or smartphones. Next, they said, can you enable us to follow the money? We just want to know that our tax is being spent prudently. We want to know that governments are addressing wastage, corruption, illicit financial flows in a way to maximize the public resources. They want to know that domestic mobilization of resources is fair and it's not oppressive to their social and economic livelihoods. And so they're asking, can we have more transparency for us to monitor public debt, public spending, and we also want to be able to report safely the misuse of public funds. They said this will help build confidence in public institutions because we'll be able to see that public funds are being stewarded and maximized for public benefit. We want to make sure that our voices are not only heard, but that governments are responsive to our voices. The lack of feeling a responsiveness, they said, fuels our skepticism and distrust in government. And so governments should make every effort to put citizens at the heart of policy making and give them opportunity to shape plans in areas that they care about most. They would want to be in the process of setting the priorities. Citizens feel that we're involved at a time after the priorities have been set, and by then it's too late to have a meaningful intervention because they don't know the basis for why that particular thing was prioritized. And so they would like a voice and a response to their proposal for what should be prioritized. Improved political will for reforms. When we're talking about political will, we are saying the credible intent and commitment of political leadership to initiate, to fund, and to effectively implement and sustain open government approaches for the common good and against self-interest. Political will is critical to the success of the objectives of OGP membership. The intent and commitment and resourcing must be sustained until the desired results are achieved. While political will is complex, it does have various dimensions and multifaceted underlying factors. It is an imperative and crucial precondition for meaningful open government reforms. Political will is difficult to navigate. However, societies with strong transparency, accountability, participation, and adherence to rule of law demonstrate improvements in political will. Lastly, protecting and expanding the civic space. Civic space is the underpinning of open government. There is a call for all governments in the Africa and Middle East region to provide an enabling and safe offline and online environment for people to think and to speak freely, for people to act in coordination, for people to advocate for change without fear of oppression and reprisals. An open and safe space for information, for expression, for association, and for assembly is a critical precondition for open, accountable governance. Repression, violence, intimidation, censorship, surveillance, violation of human rights, and other oppressive actions in the public arena of engagement must be urgently addressed. OGP member countries are urged to take a leading role cultivating enabling legal frameworks, practices, and accountability mechanisms for thriving civic spaces. As an open government community, we stand ready to partner with countries to develop and implement ambitious civic space commitments in their action plans to ensure a good civic space. Additionally, at this time of upheaval to civil society operational realities due to geopolitical and funding shifts, the OGP community should collectively work to mitigate the detrimental impact because the unique model of OGP, of co-creation, depends on it. Let us not leave this meeting with only inspiration and reinvigorated networks. These are important. More important is that we hold ourselves accountable to all the proposals generated in our time together. Umoja ni nguvu. That is Swahili for unity is strength. Let us all apply our authority, our mandates, our influence, and passions to ensure that our united vision for prosperous, inclusive, and resilient societies produce generational fruit that will live beyond the combined years' presence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steph. You are the gender balance of the panel, so I let you speak for long. But seriously, we had a civil society conversation this morning. Over 200 civil society organizations from Middle East and Africa, and we know now that we have more that unite us as civil society and governments, especially in the global majority, than what divides us. And the strength and beauty of OGP is that we are able to co-create action plans together
and that the previous acrimony between civil society and governments that used to spill out in the street is no longer resonating in this democracy. That we can solve problems together, sit in a table and iron out issues that we have, because ultimately it's not about us as actors, it's about citizens. And I think that is the maturity of OGP in its 13 and a half years, a mature teenager who seems to have taught us a lot. I'm going to flip this a bit. No one knows how these things happen. We always thank the people who do the work at the end. Let me change it and call everybody who's made this possible. It was not any of our idea. Please come. We thank you even as we go into the big meal. Kate, team, Rudy, Munyala, let people see it was their idea. We had nothing to do with this. The median age is probably 20 out of these folks. So please step on the stage, take your flowers, let everybody know that even in Kenya, we can serve a dinner I cannot mention by name. Kabare. Quickly, name.
Good evening. Good evening. Some energy. Good evening. My name is Munyala. I'm happy to be part of the Special Envoys team. I was in charge of design. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Dwasi, team lead.
All right, good evening, guys. Hi, how are you? Yes, my name is DJ Stretch. I was the creative behind the whole idea for the dinner and the inside and the fabrication and everything you're looking at from beginning to end.
Good evening. My name is Manase Kigamba. I was in charge of the production, all the cameras, the photography. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good evening. My name is Esther Mahinda, assistant team lead. Karibuni sana.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Hassan, assistant team lead as well.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Nasongo, the sound engineer for the event. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kanana Pauline, part of the brand design and the website. Thank you, Karibuni.
So thank you so much. Sometimes we do this opposite. Open government is also means we need to be open, recognize who really is behind this. I do all the talking. My apologies. I know we are supposed to listen to Dr. Korir, so let me have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Korir Sing'oei, Principal Secretary for Foreign Affairs for Republic of Kenya, but OGP co-convener for Kenya. Let me say this honestly. Dr. Korir has been our champion for the last 10 years and continues to anchor open government partnership in the ministry, and also he himself is a champion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Thigo. Your Excellency, Governor Sakaja, the governor of our great city, distinguished members of our parliament, I believe both the Senate and the National Assembly, distinguished members of the diplomatic corps here present, distinguished ministers representing different countries in Africa and in the Middle East, distinguished delegates, friends, members of civil society, and most importantly, our CEO, the CEO of the Open Government Partnership, Aidan Ayakuze, my dear brother. Ladies and gentlemen, Karibuni sana Nairobi. Now, tonight I have the distinguished honor of reading the President's speech. It's usually something that I don't do, but I will do it tonight. But I thought that before I read his remarks, by virtue of the fact of my involvement in this movement, I've listened very carefully to the well thought through ideas that have been put forward. So I think the theory of change of the Open Government Partnership is that because of all these problems and these challenges that bedevil our societies, the way to deal with them is, number one, to engage in a process of joint articulation of the problem. What is really the problem? And I think it's what Steph Mushai was talking about. What is the problem? When you uncover the problem of trust, what exactly are you talking about? So understanding the problem is the way to resolving it. And having a consensus about what the problem is pretty fundamental, I have to say. And so engaging in articulating and owning the problem. And then the second point then is to engage in an exercise, people call it here, co-creation, but I think it's about putting on the table all sorts of solutions to these problems and developing a set of priorities to address these problems. It's actually that simple. It sounds complex, but it's not that complex. And the number three is then what I call joint attribution. Because often government stands before us and tells us that this is what they have done, which might well be the truth. But the reality is that to deliver development, especially development that is meaningful, development that people feel part of, they've got to be parts of curating that solution and implementing that program. And so in the end, in terms of who owns the results, in terms of celebrating the outcome, it will not just be government that is celebrating the outcome. It will also be the citizens. And that is a concept that I call joint attribution. And so for me, the Open Government Partnerships theory of change is about joint problem articulation and identification. Number two, being able then to put forward a range of solutions and interventions. And then number three, being able to share and celebrate the outcomes and the results together. And that is why the Open Government Partnership brings together not just government, not just civil society, not just academia. It brings together the whole of society. And as Kenya, part of what we have been able to succeed in doing is bringing together not just one arm of government, namely the executive, but also the judiciary and the legislature, which is here represented. But aside from that, what we have also succeeded in doing is bringing on board our subnational governments, bringing on board our county governments to participate in that process, and all of us working together with civil society and with private sector and with academia have been able to deliver tremendous, tremendous results. Now, we are not there yet, but I think we've made quite some progress. I think with that, allow me then to read His Excellency the President's speech. It is my distinct honor to deliver this welcome address on this historic day as Kenya hosts the second OGP regional meeting in over a decade. This gathering reflects our shared commitment to the principles of open government and collaboration, which define the Open Government Partnership. Allow me to extend warm welcome to our esteemed ministers responsible for open government, honorable governors, mayors, ambassadors, civil society representatives, and distinguished delegates who've joined us. Your presence, my friends, underscores the importance of promoting transparency, accountability, and citizen participation in governance. I would also like to warmly welcome our development partners, fellow steering committee members, and representatives from the OGP Secretariat. Your unwavering support has been instrumental in advancing the open government agenda across our regions. On behalf of His Excellency President William Ruto, a steadfast champion of this movement in Kenya and throughout the continent, I extend heartfelt greetings. His leadership, commitment to democracy and transparency have been pivotal in driving progress in Kenya and globally over the last decade. President Ruto's vision for open government inspires us to strive for greater inclusivity and accountability in governance. Honorable ministers, governors, mayors, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we gather here at a pivotal moment in our history. The world faces unprecedented challenges. Democracy is under pressure, while new threats such as climate change, generative artificial intelligence, the realignment of alliances, and escalating conflicts are reshaping our global landscape. These challenges require innovative and collaborative solutions, and the Open Government Partnership offers a unique platform to address them. It is enlightening to note that while democracy is receding in many parts of the world, especially in Africa, the membership in the Open Government Partnership continues to grow. This growth reflects the enduring importance of open government principles in fulfilling citizens' aspiration for transparency, accountability, and inclusivity. This evening, we will officially welcome new members from national and subnational governments into the partnership, and I extend a warm greeting to them. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, rising unemployment, geopolitical tensions, and democratic backsliding have compounded these challenges in Africa. These factors have fueled grievances amongst our youth, leading to street protests demanding greater accountability. It is evident that trust between citizens and government must be rebuilt, and open government approaches does provide a pathway. Kenya has been a leader in open government innovation. We've made significant strides in digitizing government records, enhancing transparency, and improving service delivery through technology. These efforts have streamlined governance and empowered citizens to hold their leaders accountable. And as part of our commitment, Kenya will soon establish a National Council on Open Government, bringing together the executive, county governments, the judiciary, and civil society to ensure an inclusive approach to governance. Additionally, in collaboration with the OECD, Kenya is proud to announce the development of the first ever State of Openness report. This report will assess our progress and challenges in advancing open government principles and serve as a roadmap for future initiatives and a benchmark for other nations in the region. Even during these challenging times, Excellencies, the Open Government Partnership remains resilient. By fostering collaboration among government, civil society, and citizens, OGP demonstrates that democracy is indeed humanity's best hope for inclusivity and service delivery. Undoubtedly, OGP remains the world's best hope for strengthening a truly inclusive governance centered on citizens' aspirations for a more just world. We must, however, confront the escalating threats of misinformation and disinformation and fake news, which erode public trust, distort the democratic process, amongst others. Promoting media literacy, bolstering fact-checking mechanisms, ensuring ethical governance of AI and digital technologies, and nurturing a culture of transparency and accountability are crucial steps forward. One of the key recommendations of previous OGP meetings has been the need and emphasis on strong political leadership. Recent OGP meetings have highlighted the importance of high-level government officials participating in OGP regional and international summits. This focus has helped generate momentum for commitment and further integrate multi-stakeholder collaboration into governance reforms, leading to more sustainable and inclusive outcomes. To conclude, it is now my great honor and privilege to officially open this meeting. May it inspire renewed energy. May it inspire actionable solutions that advance the course of open government and transparency across our regions. Finally, I want to associate myself with the comments of Governor Sakaja please take time to explore the beauty of our great city. Nairobi, the only city with a national park, is part of what makes Kenya truly magical. I hope you find time to experience the beauty and the warmth of our country and our capital. I wish you very, very happy deliberations. Asanteni sana, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Piers, and thank you to His Excellency for the speech that we'll definitely share. At this time, let us take a break. We have Ghetto Classics, and we'll resume programming with a panel on OGP in action. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ghetto Classics. And please find some food. Thank you so much. In the interest of time, let me invite back to the stage again Stephanie Mushai to welcome, as you heard in the President's speech by Dr. Koril's reading it, was that we are welcoming the new members of OGP. So, Steph.
Thank you so much. In just 13 years, OGP has grown from 8 founding countries to a global partnership of 77 countries and more than 150 local governments and thousands of civil society organizations. And today, we're excited to welcome the newest members from Africa and Middle East. As we recognize the participants in the room from those members, I want us to raise our hands and make some noise. Can we do that? Can we do that? You guys sound like boring people. Okay, very good, very good. There's some hope in the room. So let's begin. We want to warmly welcome the following. We're delighted to have delegations from Benin. Where is our delegation from Benin? Please raise your hands. Benin, you are most welcome. Zambia, please raise your hands. Welcome, welcome to the partnership. Our newest national members in the region, we look forward to working with them as they begin their OGP journeys this year. We also want to warmly welcome the following local governments to the partnership. I hope I get this right. Ouele from Côte d'Ivoire. Welcome, welcome, welcome. They will engage the public in budget planning, climate change mitigation, and restoring sites damaged by mining. Next, we'd like to welcome Tamale Ghana. Are you here? Welcome, Tamale Ghana. They will engage the community in sanitation, agriculture, and educational planning. Now over to Morocco. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. They brought their flags, most welcome. Agadir is working to strengthen citizen participation via neighborhood committees. And the consortium of Sus Massa, Oriental, Dra Tafilelet, Layoun Sakia El Hamra, please forgive my pronunciation, jointly committed to raising climate and environmental awareness. Over to our famous cousins from West Africa, Anambra East Nigeria. Welcome, Anambra East Nigeria. They will begin their action plan co-creation process in the next few months. Over the border, Senegal, Dakar. Welcome. They are progressing in the co-creation of their first action plan, and YOF will work on participatory budgeting. Next, we warmly welcome from Tunisia, Darshaban El Ferri. Welcome, welcome, welcome. They will launch an online citizen engagement platform and co-create a sustainability program, and Zriba will work to bring services closer to citizens through digital tools. Finally, in our host country, Kenya, Kakamega. Welcome. Welcome to Kakamega. They will work on, among other things, civic engagement for budgeting. Again, from Kenya, we want to welcome Machakos County. Welcome, Machakos County. Welcome. They will work on inclusive public participation. Once again, a warm welcome to all new members of the OGP family. We very much look forward to working with you and to the continued growth of the partnership in years to come. We also want to take a moment to recognize those participating in the Open Government Challenge. The Open Government Challenge was launched to inspire and accelerate ambitious reforms across the Open Government Partnership. It calls on all levels of government, national and local, to take bold and concrete steps to advance 10 key thematic areas, which you can see on the screen here. The 10, there they are. The challenge is open in those areas to the entire open government community, specifically OGP members, public sector institutions, parliament, and justice, all branches of government, national, local, and provincial governments. Today, I'm delighted to acknowledge the OGP members from Africa and from the Middle East who have already stepped up to this challenge, demonstrating leadership and innovation in their reform efforts. Let's appreciate those who have stepped up for the Open Government Challenge.
Thank you so much. And a hand for Stephanie once again. Thank you very much, Steph. Challenge is open. Deadline is when? Steph, do you have a deadline? End of May. It is not forever. You have to apply by end of May. Transitioning quickly, let me invite the moderator for the next session, which is our last session. June Gashui, karibu. There should have been music, you know. She's a creative and a lawyer, so there should have been drum rolls or something like that. Thank you so much, June. No problem.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. So as Ambassador Philip tells you, I am a creative. And so in a previous life, I probably was a headmistress. And so when one asks for reactions, I'm that person. So good morning, class. I see the trauma in your eyes. Good morning, friends. Good evening, friends. Good afternoon, friends. It really is a pleasure to be here this evening with you and welcome you not only to this wonderful city of ours, but also to this conversation. As you have been told, we want to just engage in a conversation on OGP in action. So before I do that, let me ask you to do something with me. Earlier on, you heard our PS, Courier, our convener of OGP here, talk about the whole of society approach. Did we all hear that? So the creative in me has come up with a little rap thing, a call and response that we're going to do. That's WOSA. Tell your neighbor, WOSA. You can do better than that. You've eaten some fish, WOSA. Let me hear my people on the left, WOSA. Whole of society approach. This cannot work if any one of us is not a part of this process, is not an intrinsic thread in this fabric. So allow me now to begin our conversation on OGP in action. So, to stand on the protocols that have already gone before, allow me to wish you a good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining this important conversation on the role of open government in delivering transparent, accountable, and inclusive public services. My name is June Gashui. As you've heard, I am an aspiring, happy, and active citizen of the Republic of Kenya and the world. Thank you. I should add that to my CV and my LinkedIn profile immediately. And therefore, it is my honor to moderate this next session. Now, around the world, as you all know very, very personally, governments, civil society, and citizens that make up the whole of this society we are speaking about are recognizing that transparency, participation, and accountability are not just ideals, they're not just buzzwords, they are actual practical tools for us to be able to improve service delivery, building of this thing called trust, and ensuring that no one is left behind. Now, through the Open Government Partnership, as you have heard, even from their brand spanking new CEO, Mr. Eyakuze, we have seen promising innovations emerge. Now, we've looked at things like digital platforms for citizen feedback and also community-led monitoring of public resources. Now, in this session, I'm pleased to inform you that we're going to hear from those government leaders, from civil society, from advocates, and also from youth representatives on just how they plan to leverage open government principles in order to enhance service delivery in a very meaningful and impactful way. We're going to examine what is effective. We're going to try and identify what the remaining challenges are, and also finally discuss exactly how we can create stronger collaborations that promote change that truly leaves no one behind. To set even more context, I am a mother of a 2-year-old who is quickly becoming the boss of my house. And I feel like in a few years, she will be somebody who will be able to express herself even more than we did in my generation when we were that age. And we're seeing a lot of these concerns translating in what we call grievance. And that's a global trend that we're seeing all over the place. So when we discuss openness, it is my hope that we will discuss it from beginning to end. The ability to communicate, to raise the issues, that's great. To have them received by those in leadership, listened to, as Stephanie Mushai said, and feedback given. And if I contribute through public participation and you do not take some of my suggestions, then I would want to hear back from you about why suggestions 3 and 4 did not cut it. And then finally, the third part I would want to venture is the implementation of the action. That completes this cycle of what we call openness. And in this world of diminished trust, that is extremely important. Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to bring up my panelists. Ambassador Philip Thigo, Special Envoy on Technology for the Republic of Kenya, as our government perspective giver. Can we welcome him with a nice round of applause? And as he walks up here, when he takes his seat, let me hear you say, Wosa. When he takes his seat, not now. He must earn it. He must earn it. Yes, sir, I'll sit here. You may sit there. Are you ready? On the count of 3. 1, 2. Well done, my people. Well done. Next up, as the civil society representative, allow me to introduce Zukiswa Kota. Please put your hands together as Zukiswa joins us on stage. Keep the applause coming until she gets on stage. And now she's hop, skip, running. When she sits down, let me hear you say, Wosa. Ah, she hasn't sat. She did a, let's go 1, 2, and wonderful. Next, it's my pleasure to invite His Excellency, the Governor of the County of Nairobi, Sakaja Johnson, to give us a subnational and city government perspective. A round of applause as he comes. And as he sits, you know what to do. Indeed. Rehema Patricks is here to give us a perspective on the youth, or as we like to call them here, my youth dem. Put your hands together for Rehema Patricks as she comes. Keep it coming, keep it applause, keep it loud, keep it excited. Welcome, Mr. DJ. Yes. Oh, now we're going to have to start dancing. This is the problem with music. No, keep the music coming. As she takes her seat, ladies and gentlemen, kindly give her her wosa. On the count of 3, 1, 2, and let's start our conversation. So to my very distinguished panel, welcome. If you were in my home, I would have started with a song. Your microphones are on your seats. That uncomfortable feeling you are feeling is a microphone. Please test it. Switch them on and say "Wosa" for us.
Wosa. What's up?
Wosa, wosa,
Wosa.
wosa.
Wosa. All right. May we begin? All good? Thank you. So we're going to speak about harnessing open government for transparent, accountable, and inclusive service delivery. And you're all actively doing this in your daily jobs. So let's start with the government perspective, if I may, Ambassador Thigo. So my question to you is, how is it that the government of Kenya specifically, for the context of our country, has used OGP, or the Open Government Partnership commitments, in order to improve service delivery? I'm curious about the lessons, very specifically, that other governments, our new members who have joined today, what can they learn about leveraging transparency, accountability in a very tangible way?
Thank you so much, June. I think in our experience, and I think it's been running through, whether it's through the speech of the Prime Cabinet Secretary at the ministerial meeting, but also Dr. Korir's speech, both his own but also His Excellency President, is that the first thing is that OGP is an inspiration. I think in a very practical sense, it provides an opportunity for civil society, governments, academia, and private sector to co-create democracy. I think for me, there's nothing as tangible as that. The second part, of course, is it's not in abstraction. It's very much rooted in the reality of delivering services. And so OGP is always framed around action plans. Action plans are framed around commitments, and those commitments must be ambitious. So in that particular piece, then it means with an independent reporting mechanism. And so it means everything we do is measured, and what's measured gets done. In the last 10 years, a lot of the legal reforms that you see in the country, open contracting, beneficial ownership register, the land reforms, judiciary in terms of the ombudsman, legal fund for indigents in the courts, civil society public beneficial ownership act that was in hiatus for about 10 years when His Excellency the President came into, when he was inaugurated, it was one of the first things that he did. For the first time, you're going to hear something called a State of Openness report that is mentioned. So I think OGP for us has been very much grounded on the reality, yes, of ambition, but also on because of the commitment framework, then you have to be targeted, and you have to be measured, and you have to do it within 2 years. And there's nothing as quick as that. And so I think for us, it's been quite clear. And I mean, it's a lot. I can't even mention many. For Parliament, we have a parliamentary caucus. You will never have seen this before. That includes both Senate and Parliament. As Dr. Gori mentioned, the judiciary has a point of contact for the judiciary. My team currently is working with the judiciary on using artificial intelligence to open up access to citizens around the legal system, which is very hard to navigate, but making it so simple that it's accessible even in feature phones. In Kenya, like any other country, in the judiciary, online is the norm. Physical is the exception. So unless you create an opportunity where citizens can access technology, also in a very open and transparent way. So I think the judiciary, honestly, has been quite progressive in that sense. We have one of the strongest alternative justice systems mechanism in Kenya, because we understand that the judicial process sometimes is long, it's toll heavy on citizens, it's costly. But when we have an AJS, which is what one of our commitments with the judiciary is, so I can mention it across, but as you can see, 10 years down the line, we believe on the benefits of OGP.
All right, thank you for sharing some of those insights. I think if I can just probe very, very briefly, how do we manage perception? Because I like that you've highlighted things that are actively going on, but I want to venture to say that most of the citizens may not be aware. If you've not yet found yourself in the court system, you may not be aware of just how efficient things are working now. How do we deal with breaking down the perception that things aren't working and the growing mistrust?
I think it's a whole of society effort, and there has to be a reality, right? So if you look at the current data on the trust deficit, and everybody has mentioned, we live in an era of diminished trust. We're actually in a trust crisis, if you ask me. You have to leverage on the various dimensions of trust within the ecosystem of OGP, and that is a reality. Civil society are more trusted by citizens. Governments are less trusted by citizens. So co-creating with civil society, you realize that even as a government, you have to seed the options where you feel one of your partners has a better advantage than you have. And so that has been our model. And over time, when they see the collaboration, because we move together. This is the interesting thing about action plans. We co-create the action plans. We are all accountable for that one specific deliverable. So if civil society will be the one leading in the aspect of citizens, coming with government, trust increases. But to the governor's point, only if you deliver. So for me, there's also a caveat to that.
Thank you. And so let's look at the civil society approach. Zukiswa, there's a lot of faith in this specific group in the society, so much so that the government approach is to come and walk this journey with you, because the perception is we have more trust in civil societies. So maybe we can hear from you on what the challenges have been from a civil society perspective in terms of engaging meaningfully in the OGP process. And if you can also highlight how inclusive collaboration that has been referenced by the ambassador with government can actually enhance accountability, the thing we're looking for, and also public service delivery outcomes.
Thank you. I actually wanted to say that Steph actually covered quite a lot of those, so I think she did my job for me, so I'm done now. I'm joking. But to say, I think some of the points that were raised earlier in reflecting on what are the enabling factors. So maybe just to look at a few of the challenges. Perhaps the biggest that we do need to be very honest about is funding and related resource constraints that civil society face. I'll just really look at 6 key ones. The second, which we've spoken about over the past few hours, is around political reprisals and closing civic space. I think we will keep hearing that. The third is repressive and regression or regressive legislation, which is connected to the closing civic space, but a little bit different, and I'll share just shortly now why I say it is. Deepening conflict and humanitarian crises in terms of what civic actors are facing in their everyday. His Excellency Sengwe earlier said that conflict is consuming us. And I know that in his input he was reflecting or speaking particularly about conflict consuming governments, but I think that there is a specific challenge there that CSOs face. Fifth is unresponsive or inactive government partners. So when you're trying to work in the OGP space, what does that mean? The sixth one is unambitious plans and unambitious partners. So in this instance, I'm talking from a civil society perspective and unambitious partners. For each of those, I think there are just a few ways in which we can tackle those challenges. Earlier we heard about, I think the example, Honorable Nana Addo spoke about the importance of allocating budgets to do that work. And so there's no doubt if governments can find domestic resourcing for that, civil society will come along and crowdfund and be creative. We are creative. And so in much the same way where civic space and its closing is related, a really good point was raised by a colleague earlier, Laura, who said that it's not just that closing civic space has an impact on civil society. It hurts governments too. Closing civic space hurts government in the sense that it closes them off from their people, those people that they're most meant to serve. And so this is where OGP is a really exciting opportunity in that we then can lean on our leads, our government actors who are very much working to open up closing civic space or to open up that space. Where regressive legislation is concerned, it's really interesting and it's been exciting to hear and see how Kenya is showing us the way in terms of enabling environments. 2 examples being the access to information law and the other being what I think was spoken about that I heard about for the first time today, which is the public participation bill. But it's the young people in civil society that are showing us how to listen. They're showing us how to mobilize. They're showing us how to use digital platforms in meaningful and impactful ways. So that's another opportunity to leverage that partnership between governments who create an enabling environment and young activists and civic actors who can then open it up in really meaningful ways. And maybe just really lastly, I think in the context of unresponsive and inactive governments, a really good example that we heard from was Liberia, and hearing both Liberia and Ghana, for instance, where in the Liberian context, there's a presidential lead in terms of the OGP process. But by that same token, in Ghana, we have high political participation and leadership in that space. And so from a civil society perspective, those are really meaningful ways to partner and in ways in which those spaces can be opened up.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks also for just highlighting. Yes, a round of applause, please. I like the examples because it really shows the in-action part of our conversation here today. And you've mentioned the youth, and we'll come and speak with our youth representative because I have a lot of conversations about understanding the youth, but I will come to you briefly. So allow me to move to get a little bit of a subnational or city government perspective from my good friend and fellow musician, Sakaja Johnson. We are multifaceted, multi-talented individuals. Yeah, we have to say it. We have to say it, Ambassador. We have to. It's part of openness. Now, I know that your motto for the county is Lazima Iwork.
Yes.
And I know that for those of you who don't speak French, means it must work. There's no otherwise, as we like to say in Kenya. Could we add some volume to Honorable's mic? So maybe we can hear from you. I mean, your city has seen quite a bit over the last year. And you've also been very, very active in implementing some of the initiatives that you have come up with. And I think that speaks to the action. But I wonder what open government innovations you could highlight for us here that you feel have directly improved service delivery. And what are some of the notes you can give to those who are in your position in other countries so that they can be adaptable, scaled possibly, and also promoted in some of the other member countries we see here?
Thank you very much. I think I'd like to start by the perspective of someone who's run a government for just 2.5 years, but was previously I was in Parliament for 10 years, yeah, National Assembly and the Senate. You realize that you have institutions that naturally find the people to be a nuisance, yeah? So the people are a nuisance to governments generally. You want to deal with them, get them over and done with, clear them. There's so many people lining up, and it's a mindset that many of our governments have. And so for me, the most difficult thing, or rather the biggest hurdle that we have to cross is to change mindsets of staff within government institutions and within my county government, that this is our customer, we must be obsessed with our customer, it's about them. Now, the innovations can only work if the people who are using those innovations believe in the reason as to why you have those innovations. And so the culture change and making people responsive, making people understand why we need to engage with the public, making your staff know that we're here for them. It's a process that must be continuous. We must continually preach that. There are a few things we did, for instance, right when we got in, we set up a sector. And I think we're the first government to have a minister in charge of citizen engagement. Just somebody who sits at cabinet level or the CEC level, who is just about citizen engagement, public participation, and inclusivity. Then we moved on to build a customer service center. Our laws asked for it, but no one had done it. So a proper customer service center looks like a banking hall, but with young people who are able to serve and look like those who they are serving. Delivery gives trust. And so even as you innovate, for you to keep the trust,
when we were campaigning, we had many manifesto promises, and I told my team that right from the bat, we must look at what is quickest to deliver, or even the hardest first, which will take time, and that now came up with within our school feeding program. And so, all across the city, and just by context, in Nairobi we had a huge problem, and we still do, where, and in many urban cities we possibly do, where there's urban poverty, and urban poverty also comes with urban hunger. And so 1 out of 4 children were not going to school in Nairobi because of hunger. And so it's something the people have seen that I promised during the campaigns. It was in the manifesto. We got right in, we built 17 kitchens. They saw the kitchens coming up. They participated in building the kitchens. It was community. They were building, they were contracted, or the contractors engaged the community, so they participated in doing that. Now, the parents of those teachers are the ones cooking, and every day we're delivering 300,000 meals to children across the city at just 5 shillings or 4 US cents. Now, that created a bedrock of trust with the people that, yes, something that has been promised has been delivered. And now they participate with us. Young people developed this NFC device that, it tells me how many kids have eaten. All the children wear this watch. And so there's ownership within the community. And for me, it became an entry point to many other interventions across the city. So I think the first, for a local government level, because at local government is where the rubber really meets the road, local governments are right where the people are. I think you must build that trust by delivering first, and as you deliver, then you continue to co-create with them. And I think for me, I'm very happy that 2 years into my term in office, it is easier for me to introduce more programs and engage with the community, because they've seen something that was promised, was spoken about, looked impossible, faced hurdles, I was taken to court. They've seen it working. Now, based on that, you can innovate on many other things, and we've done it in many areas, whether it is water reticulation, whether it is water reticulation, our platforms of social media where we're engaging with our people. All of that must be founded on the trust that we've been able to create.
So what's next on your list?
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot that is coming up. We're doing Vision 2050 planning for the city. In the next 25 years, Nairobi is going to have a population of 10.5 million people. And so there are many areas, because this future won't plan itself, that we want to now engage fully with the community, with all sectors, in a year-long program of planning what the future will look like. And it's a co-creation program. We come up with, like what we have in Kenya, the Vision 2030, but for Nairobi 2050. For me, that then forms the bedrock of all other interventions that we'll do. But we have things coming up in housing. We're building stadia. We are sorting out healthcare in places that never had ICU facilities. We have now set up a company on solid waste management that is owned by the county government. But all of those, again, I'm saying, must be founded by the people owning it. Now remember, the same way the governments inherently felt people are a nuisance, and I've experienced that, the people also feel that the government is more or less is a big lie, and that leaders will always lie, and they don't really mean it, So there's mistrust on both sides. And so I just hope that participation creates a platform that people know. And I like some of the comments that, when there's no feedback, when you go for public participation and you invite people for a meeting at a town hall on a Tuesday afternoon, and you still go on and do what you wanted either way, then tomorrow they will not come. So for me, those two initiatives really, for me, form a basis through which then you can get the tools. But without the trust, without participating in building the future that we want, because my work is not, we said lazima work. We said let's make Nairobi work, not let Sakaja make Nairobi work, or let me make Nairobi work.
Oh, you included
so it's all of us, even
okay.
you. I included there.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I want to come to our youth representative, Ms. Patricks. And I maybe just to share some statistics, because I read up on this space and I realized that what are we seeing? We're seeing societal fracture. We're seeing a frayed social contract, which I think a lot of young people were born into. It was already running and valid, even though it's an implied document of sorts, an agreement that those who will allow to rule us will do so effectively in exchange for us giving up some privileges and some rights. And I wonder, especially from this new era of the velocity and the volume of information, because we've all sort of heard the onset of technology and AI and the mistrust in that area as well. And I find like the youth have a better understanding on what they understand and what they don't know and what they don't trust. So my question to you is, what is it that you can share with us on how youth-led initiatives are really using open government so they can improve their approaches on service delivery, or maybe even give feedback on what their expectations are? And from that youth perspective, for the government seated here and listening, what are the strategies they can implement, and also for civil society, so that we can strengthen the transparency, the citizen trust across youth participation in governments?
Thank you so much for your question. Allow me to ride on already existing protocol. Just for pointers, the experiences and strategies that I'm going to be sharing today are based from a Malawi young environment, because I'm a young person representing and sharing my experiences doing activism in Malawi. I think, let me just quickly highlight a few strategies that young people in Malawi have used, especially, for example, in issues to do with demanding transparency and accountability in public service delivery, demanding transparency and accountability in corruption, for example, and government officials and what have you. One of the key things that I think as Malawian youth have made strides on is exploring a strategical tool called public interest litigation. And this is something that was never really done before by young people, coming together to say, hey, listen, we get that we have heard allegations about you doing misconduct, we have heard allegations about you being or participating in corrupt practices. We want to ensure that you are held accountable for your action, because the position that you're holding is based on trust. And the moment the public loses trust in the systems that we have, in the leaders that we have, then there is no future for us young people who are trying to ensure that our future is safe. So we have explored issues to do with public interest litigation to ensure that we're holding government officials, we're holding systems accountable against corruption and impunity. That's one thing that I want to highlight. And for those of who might be interested in just to see how much is gone, we have about 5 cases of high-level profile cases that have actually gone to court and properly being finalized in court. We have the Mezgate scandal, which happened in the previous government, where the Home Minister of Finance was allegedly involved in misconduct in terms of procurement, inflating prices. And the court said, yes, they had established a commission of inquiry and they found that he really was in the wrong. So things like those. We have the SATA case. For those who follow the trends in the fight against corruption, you'd know that we had a massive high-level corrupt practices in Malawi by the businessman called SATA. All those things, we're really making sure as young people that the story does not end in the media. Let them go to court, let them face the justice system, and let there be accountability. Secondly, as young people, we have taken a step further to say, listen, most of the times when we're talking about involving young people in places where you want them to actually instill change, you bring them as a representative of a marginalized group. No offense, let's take this panel discussions that I'm in. I'm a young person representative. I'm just here to tell you what the young people are doing. But when you come from, like when you ask us young people, we don't necessarily just want to be part of the conversation. We want to be the center of the conversation, making sure, as the Honorable Ambassador said, that our reflections are reflected in the national action plans, because it's not only about young people said this, ABCD, they were part of the conversation. Let us see those parts of the conversations that we contributed being reflected upon in national action plans. So that's very key. So in Malawi, we have taken strides in ensuring that we're bringing in these key stakeholders in places where young people can have an interface with them. Just last week, we had a seminar with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, because we noticed that every attempt that we're having in terms of advocating for transparency and accountability in these high-level corruption cases were being discontinued. And we kept wondering, where is it that we're going wrong in terms of doing our due diligence in investigating and providing evidence? Where are we going wrong in terms of holding these alleged culprits to task? So we said, can you come on board? Share with us what is the criteria that you use to say, oh, we're no longer pursuing this case. Why are you discontinuing it? But not only that, can we go now to explain to the people in the rural communities to say, okay, you have heard A, B, C, D, and the government has decided to discontinue this case. This is why they have, this is the process that they used, and if you have views on that, this is their chance for you to speak out. So I think it's high time we start looking at the process of transparency and accountability from the beginning to the end. It shouldn't end on the middle. It is every citizen at their very particular level has to have the right information with regards to the decisions that were made. Even as civil society actors in our organizations, when we're advocating for this, let us ensure that the very people that are at the receiving end should be able to get the information that they need. I'm cruising, sorry.
That's okay.
Just two more highlights of the things that we do, innovative ideas that we have been employing, because we're done with this level of activism. Now we're heading up. We have been there for a very long time. So as young people in Malawi, we have also been doing a lot of advocacy on asset recovery and repatriation of assets. Listen, it's not enough to hold you accountable. If you have been found guilty, we want you to return back exactly what you stole. If it were up to me, I'd probably say you should add interest, but maybe that's a conversation for another day. So the idea is, can we have a system, all right, that is fully fledged to ensure that any mismanaged funds that are affecting public service delivery, any mismanagement of fund that is causing chaos and havoc in our nations, is brought back from where it was stolen? And can we ensure that we have the right guidelines to ensure that these repatriated assets are being managed effectively? So then we don't fall back in a trap to say, oh, but we didn't know what we were supposed to do with it, and then somebody else has come to mismanage the funds. So such activism, such advocacy, such strategies that we're employing is to make sure that we're addressing not necessarily only the grassroots type of corruption, but also the toppest, finest level of corruption that is existing up there. And lastly, we're also doing a lot of advocacy in judicial accountability. It's very important as democratic countries to ensure that the arms of government are independent, to ensure that justice is effectively served, and to ensure that there is no any influence in these key arms of the government. So we have been advocating for a legal reform to say our judges who sit on cases for a very long time, especially cases with regards to corruption, is there a mechanism to hold them accountable to say, why has this case been going on for 10 years? Why are you releasing a judgment before the case is held in court? So such mechanisms, we need to have accountability in the judicial system as well for that machinery to work independently and effectively to ensure that everybody has access to justice at national level, at regional level, even at community level. So those are just some of the innovative strategies that we're bringing forward as young people in Malawi. Lastly, you did ask about, how then can we be engaged by government and the civil society? I think the lovely panelists here have already hinted on a couple of things. Honorable Governor there talked about the issue of mindset change, which I think is very, very crucial. And that stems on how do governments look at young people? How do the civil society look at young people? Are we looking at young people as necessarily just just to make policies fancy. In Malawi, we have all these 2063 policies, and they're saying, oh, but young people are the center of that policy. But what are we really doing? What deliberate initiatives are we putting in place to ensure that exactly that young person is really at the center to make that agenda a success, you know? So can we change our mindset? Let us utilize young people, because again, in Malawi, for example, the majority of the population are young people. This cannot only be part of the conversation. They have to be the ones driving the change. Zuki highlighted on the challenges that are affecting the civil society, to say, you know, lack of funding, we're struggling for resources and whatnot. And that's the very thing that young people in this space are facing. So how about we look at partnerships and collaborations to say the civic space? How do you bring on board young people who, for example, do not have the stamina that you have, to ensure that they are also benefiting from the resources that you have, to ensure that they are, you know, getting the knowledge that you have? So then we ensure that there's a generational transition, because the youth of today will not remain the same 5 years down the line. They're definitely going to move out of the youth bracket, and they also need to ensure that they are replacing you in the spaces that you have already existed. And finally, for me, what I would say when it comes to government as well, how about we ensure that the regulations that we have, especially in how we're operating the civic space, do not necessarily undermine the interest of young people, do not undermine the contributions that young people have to bring in the space. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
A round of applause. Thank you so much, Ms. Peters. You know, you've highlighted activism, actual deliverables that are happening, and I really appreciate that. I had a chance to glance at the Edelman Trust Barometer report from 2025, and one of the things that had been highlighted was that 1 in 2, this was a worrying trend, see hostile activism as a viable means to drive change. And they were looking at examples of attacking people online, intentionally spreading disinformation, threatening or committing violence or threatening to commit violence, and damaging of public and private property. So I really appreciate that you've highlighted very, very forward thinking. And it's not rocket science. I mean, you're talking about corruption, you're talking about things that affect our countries collectively in so many of the same ways. The other statistic that I thought was interesting, and as I ask us for our final comments, is that our friends at the World Bank have actually told us that 1 in 5 people on the planet will be African by 2050. And I think that's a massive statement. So as I come to ask each of you for your final closing remarks, we have an opportunity to speak and set context for the next 2 days. What would success look like for you as you leave here at the end of this conference? So Kiswa, let me start with you. You're nodding and smiling, so it looks like your answer is ready.
Ready to speak last. Speak about, I think, really, for me, a successful convening, and certainly a really high note to begin in, would be to be able to chart really ambitious conversations, ambitious plans. I really do think that business as usual is out the window. We can't afford to continue that way. I've heard a lot already around really taking on ambitious plans. The second element, and I think the digital space, digital governance in all its forms, is a really exciting space, but also one that presents a lot of risks and threats. I think that a conversation, or the conversations that amongst the thematic areas that OGP is focusing on, that the digital governance one is one that I'd really love to see how we shape that. And I think having young people in the space and being in Kenya, where digital governance and AI and so on are really areas where Kenya leads, is more than exciting. So those would be the 2 areas for me, and both of which I think are reflected in the Open Gov Challenge. So the last aspect around what would be exciting, what would be ambitious by the end of these days, is for more of us to take on the Open Gov Challenge in meaningful ways, and that's really about activity and energy, and no more business as usual.
All right, noted. No more business as usual. Let me come to our governor, Sakaja Johnson. Success at the end of these 2 days looks like what for you?
Well, thank you. First of all, success for me as a city leader is, number one, having more champions from more cities being part of this agenda, because you need a critical mass of leaders who believe in this from across the continent and the Middle East. And I'm glad that we've onboarded a few more cities, a few more counties in Kenya, because it's not 2 or 3 who will make the change, you know. Secondly, and I like, you know, the youth perspective. And you know, when you were talking, I was just thinking, my goodness, I'm an immediate former youth, you know. I used to think I was young. And you're right, you know. 5 years ago, I would have fit into the bracket. Our constitutional bracket is 35 years old. Now I don't fit. In the African context, I'm still a very young leader. But locally, I am very far removed, you know. And so to remind myself that young people must be at the table. I used to, you know, I was very big on that, because I said, you know, if young people are not on the table, you're on the menu, you know, and we must choose where we are. And I think we've made quite some strides. I saw the CEO of the Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association earlier on. That's an organization I restarted more than 10 years ago that had members of parliament below 35, you know, and it'd be good to re-engage with the young people, even in Nairobi. I know my sectors do it, but I want to do it more of myself. Success in this convening will be when a great level of understanding is achieved. A great level of understanding between the different sectors and partners in this partnership. Open government will not succeed, one, if it's adversarial. It will not succeed if it is finger pointing and blame games between different sectors. It will not succeed if it's a competition. It will succeed if, one, you get understanding, and I'm happy that I think a few people have had the advantage of being on different sides of the conversation, you know. Philip, you've been in different sides of this conversation. I have been as a youth leader, then as a political party leader, as a parliamentarian, and now in the executive. But very few have the 360-degree perspective. And so everyone in government thinks civil society doing the wrong thing. Civil society think government is doing the wrong thing, or they're not interested. If this can create understanding within Middle East and Africa of the different you know, partners, I think that would be a great, great success. And that understanding then will give birth to programs that are co-created even within, but not just for the sake of ticking a box, but for the sake of, you know, once we've really gotten to understand where everybody else is, that would be success. Of course, finally, success for me means you've enjoyed Nairobi. You know, if you enjoy Nairobi, as the governor of Nairobi, I'll be very, very happy. And we'll do whatever it takes to make sure you enjoy being in Nairobi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Governor. Ambassador Thigo, let me come to you. Success over the next 2 days looks like what? If I meet you on the 28th morning for breakfast, what will you tell me?
I think I'd ride on the governor's point around a common understanding, but I'll say a common understanding. That if on 28th we're on the same page, that this is what open government is, these are what the values are, and this is what we can do collaboratively, I think we'll have achieved a lot. Because the world is increasingly fragmented, it's increasingly siloing, and I think we should not assume that people can come together like this. These are strange times, and so for me, even having come together, sit in a room, and have a common understanding that this is what we can do together to address these challenges that we're facing collaboratively in a world that is increasingly uncertain, I think for me, that's success. Because if we can even be, we need to be certain of the partnerships, even to deal with the uncertainty. So we cannot be uncertain, even of the partnerships, to deal with uncertainty. And I think for me, that's something that I feel open government provides. The second part, of course, is there's a lot of knowledge in this room. I think it's Aidan that said we are too shy to talk about our successes. This is very African that we don't talk about ourselves. And so I think the more we talk about this, and we should not be shy to talk about this, we should not be shy to brag about this. I was having a discussion with His Excellency the Governor before, that what he has on his hand is unlike any other innovation in the world. And believe me, I am in the tech space. It doesn't exist. But because we do not talk about it, we do not celebrate it, not many people know about it. And so I think for me, if we celebrate the successes amongst ourselves, but then amplify those successes to other spaces who need inspiration from what this community is doing, for me, that in itself is a success, because the world needs hope right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. The world needs hope. Very true. And now, of course, Ms. Peters, success at the end of these 2 days for you.
So for me, I think, allow me to write on your final remarks as well. I think, well, he talked a lot about knowledge sharing, you know, and values that we hold and what we tend to agree in spaces like this. For me, success would look at now the personal initiatives that each country takes on board to say, this is the goal that we want to achieve, and can we go and work towards this particular goal? So for me, success would be having that that passion and that willingness to take initiatives beyond any adversaries to say, you know, this is where we're going, and let us as a country, based on those particular 2 days that we spent there, make the efforts to get where we want to get. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to move a very big and quick vote of thanks to all our speakers this evening. You've shared powerful insights, and I think it's clear really to all of us here that open government is not just a one-size-fits-all approach. It requires all of us to be truly invested in the process and the outcomes. It is clear that there's a sense of urgency. The time is now. Business as usual out the window. I think all of you have alluded to that. And so when we are rooted in collaboration, trust, responsiveness, it really has the power to transform how we serve our communities, and I hope we will go away believing that truly. So I want to ask that we continue building open, inclusive, and accountable systems together. And I want you to have this in the back of your minds as you go in to the next 2 days, ladies and gentlemen, friends, fellow active citizens of the world. What must we do? What is the role that you can actively play, so that we can answer this question: is consensus possible in this world as we know it? And finally, I would be remiss if I did not close with the words of another tall personality like me, Michael Jordan, who said, earn your leadership every day. Just like in a marriage, you wake up, you look at that person and you say, I have to love this person again today. Earn your leadership every day. Thank you so much for giving us your ears and lending us your time. A round of applause for my panelists. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you so much, June. And I now take back the podium. Thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Zuki. And our youth who came with music. We can live with music, right? Oh. Thank you so much. Kill the music. Can I have more Tarek and Kotatso? Maureen, Tarek, Kotatso. Maureen, Tarek, Kotatso. Please clap for them. Maureen, Tarek, Kotatso. Maureen, Tarek, Kotatso. Please come to the stage. You work behind scenes. We want to see you. OGP, Africa, and Middle East would not be possible without these three magicians. Please stand on stage. Say one word as we close. I like surprises. I am for the Christmas in my other life. Say something before we go.
Just to say thank you very much. Honorable delegates, excellencies, I want to say thank you to Ambassador Thigo, the government of Kenya, all of the foot soldiers that have made tonight possible, all of you that are still here even, And also within the OGP support unit, I want to thank our leadership for trusting us with this regional meeting. And I hope that you will enjoy the remainder of what we have as an offering for you. We look forward to your inspiration. We look forward to you sharing with us, and we look forward to growing, becoming stronger as a community following the next coming days. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Philip, for putting us on the spot. Just wanted to say thank you to everybody and karibu to Kenya, to Nairobi. Don't think there's anything else really to say. Asanteni.
Hold on, I have a 20-minute speech written. No, seriously, I'm so happy. I mean, it has been hard work, sleepless nights, but I'm so happy that it's like a big family getting together. Civil society, governments, local governments, parliaments, justice, independent institutions. Thank you so much. The snowball is getting bigger and bigger. OGP is getting brighter. Thank you so much.
And back to work. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Last announcements. We start at 9 tomorrow, so we still have work to do. 9 sharp. We have a tendency of closing doors. With the digital governance plenary, that will be in Kilimanjaro 1 in the hotel. Tomorrow there's a segment for recognizing the OGP challenge. That should be at 3 p.m. Just look at at 4? Okay, thanks Rudy. Rudy is also behind the scene there. I hope people know you. And with that, we can call the evening a close. Landed the plane 5 minutes before. We give you 5 minutes back. Thank you so much.
Soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma. Yo soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma. Y antes de morir me quiero echar mis versos del alma.
Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera.
Mi verso es de un verde claro y de un carmín encendido. Mi verso es de un verde claro y de un carmín encendido. Mi verso es de un ciervo herido que busca en el monte amparo. Y arriba, y arriba.
Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera,
reyes de la tierra. Quiero yo mi suerte echar. El arroyo de la sierra me complace más que el mar.